Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that the story of Sad Futago has come to a close. But trust me, this story goes so much deeper than the church, than modders. You see, viewer, I have suspicions. I have suspects. I have Discord chat messages. What if I told you this rabbit hole goes deeper than Sad Futago and his modding scheme? What I'm about to tell you won't be covered by any other YouTuber. Mudahar? Bitch. Gooseboos? Fucker. I'm gonna show you just what lies even deeper than the church itself. But first, I need to wrap up Sad Futago's story. Where we left off was the 26th of July when Sad Futago had just posted a video showing him traveling through the copied city into the church for the first time. He comments that he had to delete Far Cry 4 and Terraria to make room for the recording, a noble sacrifice. 4 hours later, he begins to comment some rather strange things throughout the 26th and the 27th. He starts calling his own videos cut content or a mod, and he starts saying all kinds of things that make him seem like some kind of parrot, repeating what the community was talking about at the time. This raised suspicion, but most people either ignored it or believed it to be some kind of translation error, which would make sense given the fact that Sad Futago had led everyone to believe he was a French Canadian. Still, some people figured that these were translation errors resulting from rough Japanese to English translation rather than French to English translation, which would be another piece of evidence for people who believe the whole thing to be a Yoko Taro stunt. He also tells someone that the Futago in his name refers to a clan, probably from Naruto. General insanity consumes the subreddit, and lots of things happen at once. Somebody finds a Nexus mod page created by a user calling themselves Sad Futago, but it's sussed out as a gamejacker pretty quickly. On the 27th, Yoko Taro posts 2 messages on his Twitter account, the first in reply to someone asking about the Sad Futago event, and Yoko Taro refers to his Twitter bio, which seems to imply that he legally cannot talk about his products, or some shit. He adds on later that while his following has increased dramatically, he doesn't have anything to say, except that he likes sausages and beer. Later that day, Redditor Mr. Blue 630 posts a document that compiles the modding community's thoughts on the videos posted so far. Keep Mr. Blue 630 in mind. He'll be important later. The document itself is short and mainly points out the inconsistencies between Sad Futago's story versus what he showed. First, they point out the models shown in the church were directly ported from Nier Replicant. Next, they show that the aliasing from Sad Futago's video seems to be produced either by a PS4 Pro or PC. Yet, Sad Futago has made it clear that he has a regular non-Pro PS4. They look into some interesting details in the videos filmed by hand, with one frame showing what might be a router plugged into the PS4, which would contradict Sad Futago's earlier statement that he never connected it to the internet. They point out the lack of ambient occlusion in early videos, and the fact that there should be some geometry where the church's entrance supposedly lied. Next, they show some images Sad Futago posted in their modding Discord where he apparently has a job. The author immediately makes the assumption that this is a lie or some smoking gun that contradicts all the other times Sad Futago talked about not having a phone or internet for his PS4. I just want to say, the fact that the author felt the need to write this says more about him than Sad Futago. Anyway, they go into further detail about some technical errors with the videos, such as the lack of arrows showing for dropped items, unfinished light maps for objects in the church, which made things like cubes on the floor have inconsistent lighting, the fact that the cubes would change position in later videos, and the light maps would be corrected, issues with the fog shader, and the overall fact that the differences between the videos, like the pillars emitting noise in later videos, but not earlier ones, demonstrate that the game is being continuously updated between videos, which isn't possible on a non-updated console disc. The authors come to the conclusion that Sad Futago couldn't have been using a base PS4 copy, and that what was shown was modded in, though they still weren't sure of the circumstances that would have made what was shown possible. It seems, though, that they were leaning into the theory of Sad Futago being a rando rather than a developer. On July 27th, 11 PM Eastern Time, Sad Futago begins posting rapidly. First, he says he's been playing as 9S, the character that would have allowed him to open the chests seen in the church, but the blocky guy apparently attacks and kills him. He posts a video showing what he's talking about.
What is that?
What's that?
He makes several posts detailing his journey at trying to kill the blocky guy. During this time, the entire community begins to show their support for Sad Futago's valiant efforts against Blobby. He beats it.
What is that?
What's that?
On July 28th at 1 in the morning, he posts a new video showing the aftermath of his victory. He runs into a riddle from Drakengard, but it's in Japanese, which Sadfutago apparently thinks is Korean, and answers incorrectly 3 times in a row. People were positively frothing, trying to get this guy to enter the correct sequence, but all he did after that was comment on some 2B fanart. Later that day at 8 PM, he comments on even more fanart right before he posts 5 images. In order, he titled them Z, E, 3, 4, and Zinnia. So at this point, what's going on should be obvious to anyone who's ever fucked around with ARGs before, where the people running it couldn't resist the urge to go all creepy, and spooky, and mysterious, and it just fucks up the whole vibe. I mean, the whole sad Futago character was so entertaining that for it to go in the least interesting direction possible is very disappointing. Unironically, it makes the whole experience go from a 10 out of 10 gamer moment to like a 7 or even 6. Very bad play here. On July 29th, it all came to an end. Sadfutago posts a Twitch channel link and changes the profile description to Japanese text saying, "There is no ARG." The channel would go live for only a few minutes, and this is what was shown.
What's that?
The Sad Futago account posts a final thank you and also dunks on a very specific individual. So that's it then, right? What most people thought was inconceivable turns out to be very conceivable. Some modders really did just revolutionize the modding scene for shits and giggles, completely eclipsing the modding community's skills. After all, this modding Discord was so sure there was no way it could have been a mod after all, right? That's the end. No, my friend. It's only the beginning.
Part 2. Holder's Delight.
Haven't you thought it was weird how things played out? How the so-called modding Discord was played so easily? How did Sad Futago get away with this hoax with so little trouble? So what I'm going to tell you goes back years, but trust me when I say everything I'm telling you is very relevant to the modded church. You'll see. Strap in, my friend. Starting off, in my last video I mentioned Lance McDonald, a data miner who got famous for finding the last Easter egg in Nier Automata, but his involvement in this situation is so much more intimate than it might seem. Lance's big break happened on January 3rd, 2021, when he posted about a cheat code in Automata that lets you skip to the last ending of the game. This cheat code was discovered almost 4 years after the game released in 2017, and received quite a bit of attention. Take a look at the tweet I'm showing you. 1.3 million views, 47,000 likes. Not bad. He even got a response from Yoko Taro, and gaming articles written about his discovery. You can imagine that he quickly became something of a celebrity in the Nier community, and would eventually be invited to the modding Discord. And so here it is. This is the place where most of the investigation around Sad Futago took place. It's a trashy, filthy server, but it's also where Lance has been since its discovery in 2021. Also, take a look at this. This is one of the guys behind Sad Futago talking to Lance on his first day in the server. That's funny. Also suspicious. Very suspicious. I'll keep that thought for video 3. Let's skip until June of this year when Sad Futago begins posting. At this point, the Discord picks up on Sad Futago's posts and pretty much dissect them as they come out. As a matter of fact, most of what that document I showed earlier was practically already written by various members of the Discord before it was posted in July. Isn't that interesting? Let's keep going. Lance doesn't get involved until June 18th. When he does, he's actually one of the few arguing against the church being a mod. He even enthusiastically supports the possibility of the church being real, in contrast to most other members, who are all very skeptical even this early on. This will soon turn out to be incredibly ironic. Keep in mind that while most of this discussion takes place on Discord, most people on Reddit have no idea what Sad Futago is, and they won't until July. So, discussion around Sad Futago takes place mainly on the 18th of June and a few days afterward, but discussion about the church and just in general dies quickly, and nothing interesting happens until July. If the Discord server had thoroughly investigated the church as intensely as they did later, it's pretty likely that they would have exposed the truth before July, but it seems after June 20th and Sad Futago stopped responding after he posted his first video, the server itself died until mid-July, when Sad Futago becomes active in the server on July 24th. Lance begins to work on data dumping the game to look for the assets Sad Futago showed off. It seems he didn't get far until the 25th when Sad Futago posts the first video showing the twisted hallway and moving columns. Like I said previously, everyone's minds broke, but interestingly, there was some serious skepticism at first. Do you remember the screenshot where the modding community apparently came to a consensus? Well, this guy wasn't even well known in the modding community. Now, at first, the reaction to this video was a mixture of bewilderment and general optimism, which would have come to infect the whole community in the days after, but the most enthusiastic person in the initial discussion was Lance, who apparently felt so amazed by the video that, without further provocation, sent the video to Yoko Taro, who he apparently had been in communication with. From what I can tell, Taro just sent the dude a very corporate, "Thanks for playing, LOL" message, and now Lance considers himself butt buddies with the Taro himself. Lance apparently felt so strongly about the church, he decided to post it on Twitter. Now, this screenshot was taken days after it was posted, but trust me, it went viral quick. Chances are that if you heard of this secret door, you heard of it from this exact tweet. And look at those stats. 3.3 million views, 135,000 likes. Wow, that makes Lance's discovery seem like chump change by comparison, huh? Lance would continue to update the specific thread as things had unfolded, and added this tweet 30 minutes after the first one, where he just authoritatively states this kind of modding isn't possible. And yet, Hours earlier, people on the Discord server were literally in agreement that they never came to that consensus. And it's not like Lance is some master modder himself. Sure, he found that cheat code in the engine, but the skills needed to pull off the hidden church are a completely different ballgame. And Lance himself was only told about the most recent updates on the church that same day. What happened next was subtle. It wasn't said out loud in any message or tweet, but it happened between the 25th and the 26th. Lance's tweet went viral and gave Sadfutago more attention than Lance ever had. That same attention that Lance had enjoyed so thoroughly. What happened is that Lance began to mold. At first, he gracefully changes his mind. Now he thinks Sadfutago could be a modder. He starts debating all the other technical details the other modders had been discussing. Keep in mind, he never expresses the fact that his opinion changed outside of his mid-live streams he broadcasted during this period, and on the Discord, so ostensibly his Twitter thread was still very pro-Sadfutago and anti-modder. That would be bad for Mauled Man Lance's Twitter following after all. After that, Mauled Man Lance starts cracking wise as if he wasn't the reason why anyone was taking the whole thing seriously in the first place. And at this point in his little temper tantrum, Mauled Man Lance starts calling the mod fanfiction. He hates fanfiction mods, and the guy behind Sadfutago is just a fan who wants clout. He can cope with his stupid, it's exciting on a technical level excuse all day, but look at this shit. Calling this a fan project? What a fucking dick. He keeps molding for a few days, and generally becomes more and more unlikable as we approached Futago Day on the 29th. And when the big reveal happens, he gets his little victory. Why would I be upset about this? Have you not read anything I've been saying along the way? We have, Mauled Man Lance, we have. What you have been saying did nothing but confuse and misled the whole community with that tweet you never clarified on, even though you switched your mind almost immediately. When people said Nier's mining community can't replicate this, they were really saying Mauled Man Lance said Nier's mining community can't replicate this. It got to the point where people outright believed Mauled Man Lance sabotaged the entire community because of how effectively he misled people. This was the secret to Sadfutago's success. Not some crazy intelligent scheme or revolutionary advances of the modding scene. No, it was Lance. But Lance didn't act alone. Let's take another look at that guy trash-talking Lance. Him and Mauled Man Lance had gone back and forth over some technical details during this period, but this guy was brand spanking new to the community, only showing up on July 25th after the church went viral. How about we look him up? What we find is his Twitter profile. He's 19, furry, and working on all those projects. Wow, he must be skilled or something. We also find his Reddit account, Mr. Blue 630, the same account that posted that debunking document. But there's more to this guy. As a matter of fact, I can say with absolute certainty and completely unironically that this kid has one of the worst reputations I have ever seen in my entire life. It doesn't matter where you go, Reddit, Discord, real life acquaintances, any community that interacted with this kid fucking hates him. And that includes Nier, of course. I'll show you what I'm talking about later on, but I'm serious when I tell you that this guy is one of the slimiest motherfuckers that I have ever had the displeasure of looking at, and I've been around the goddamn block. But let's start at the beginning, and this will be a long tangent, so if at any point you want to skip back ahead to the Nier related stuff, skip here, and I'll give you a summary. The biggest scandal associated with that kid has something to do with an incident in the Shadow of the Colossus community that resulted in the biggest leak in their history. That's an interesting coincidence, since Shadow of the Colossus' community has also been conducting their own search for hidden secrets for years, looking for things like the fabled cut colossi that they've been researching for years. Going over to Shadow of the Colossus' subreddit, we can see a few posts about the incident dating back to August 31st, 2021. Almost a year ago now. What apparently happened was that our friend Meows and Stuff, aka Revolver Ocelot, aka Mo, leaked documents onto 4chan that he somehow got from a group called Team Stage 0, and they were in contact with somebody from Team Ico, the developers of Shadow of the Colossus, meaning these were brand new, never before seen leaks. Also, take a look at the guy who posted this. He's important. If we dig deeper, we can find this comment that gives a lot of context to the situation. Team Stage Zero was a group made of project leads from Beyond the Forbidden Lands, which was a project that was trying to recreate the game with cut colossi restored. TS0 got into contact with the dev and were sworn to secrecy as they received exclusive unreleased information. Our guy was the leader of BTFL and had done some fucked up shit like impersonate a dev and got kicked out. He tried to create a new group called Beyond the Forbidden Lands Classic, but ultimately retaliated by leaking some of the material TS0 had accumulated and spun the story like TS0 were hoarding their information. So what I just said is correct, but it's not the full picture, and this comment gets most of the story wrong. In fact, trying to figure out what the fuck even happened is excruciatingly difficult. Another comment digs deeper into the kid's reasoning. It seems that in addition to spiting BTFL, he leaked in order to cut off contact with the dev and force BTFL into following the original design for Shadow of the Colossus instead of some alternate plan. He then says he's
had my fun. Now it's time to move on to better, larger projects that will probably challenge me and my game design skills.
okay. And if we look into this deleted comment, we can find this absolute gem of a screenshot. Look at this furry motherfucker trying to have a fucking Joker moment.
You thinking I have any sort of empathy for others is amusing. I am literally unable to feel any sort of emotional connection for other people. Nope, not dealing with that fucking migraines again. I'd rather jump off a cliff than deal with that fucking shit again.
Jesus Christ, Lord above almighty. Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a genuine twisted fucking psychopath. And this is simply the beginning of Mr. Psychopath's antics. The real juicy shit starts one day earlier on 4chan.
Without a fire, but a desire to not hear you say I have a boyfriend, and I see the ladies walking along one by one, and I never want to hear I have a boyfriend. Tell me why I still stuck at the virgin with rage. Tell me why I still need a cute girl my age. Tell me why I never want to hear you say I have a boyfriend, and I have no fire but a desire to not hear you say I have a boyfriend. Tell me why I still stuck as a virgin with rage. Tell me why I still need a cute girl my age. Tell me why I never want to hear you say I have a boyfriend. Why do all of the jerks get all of the pretty girls? Yeah, you may not know this, but I want you to know that I am a lonesome heart without a fire, but a desire to not hear. Don't wanna hear you say yeah, the virgin with rage. So need a cute girl my age. I never wanna hear you say I have a boyfriend. Tell me why I still stuck as a virgin with rage. Tell me why I need a cute girl my age. Tell me why I never wanna hear you say I have a boyfriend. I have a boyfriend. Never say it now.
So, I just want to get this out of the way. I could not give a flying fuck about Shadow of the Colossus, and I really don't care about Mr. Psychopath's actions in that thread. What I care about is that goofy motherfucker saying this shit with a goddamn furry profile picture. That's what I care about, and by that account, I would not call him based. Not based at all. And if you notice, it seems Psychopath wasn't the guy who started the thread. Somebody from TS0 did. That wasn't mentioned anywhere on Reddit, so initially I thought that was just Psychopath putting on some kind of stunt. At that point, I really didn't know what in God's name was going on, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to message some of the people involved. And wouldn't you know it, I got lucky, and this guy, Mr. Bunsington, responds. Familiar face. So before I show you our chat, I want to clarify at this point, everything had just barely been revealed and I didn't exactly have knowledge of what was going on, so I make a few mistakes in what I was saying. But I was also trying to play my cards close to my chest at the same time. You'll see. Hey my man, I'm doing some research on a particular user you've interacted with in the past, Ocelot/Mo, and if it's not a sore subject to talk about, would you be willing to talk to me about him?
What do you mean by research?
Have you seen the recent news about Nier Automata and the whole church thing? A big part of that whole story is the involvement of NA's modding scene. Take a guess as to who's one of their leaders. Anyway, I'm just looking into the whole thing. Call me an ARG player who went too deep, but I feel very suspicious about many of the things going on with that event and community.
Alright, well, what do you want to know?
So, correct me if I'm wrong with my understanding, but it seems like Team Zero was a data mining community for Shadow of the Colossus that got into touch with some kind of insider, and that information was used on a project, Beyond the Forbidden Lands, to recreate an earlier version of that game. Mo didn't like the direction the whole thing was heading in, and leaked that info and got the source cut. Is that correct so far? Stage 0, sorry.
It wasn't necessarily that he didn't like the project's direction, but it was more just a personal slight at us, because we had removed from the community for previous issues, but the rest is mostly, right, removed him. But he recorded a big 15-minute apology a few days ago for us, so I don't think he's a horrible person, but just a kid who got a bit ahead of himself, while having a lot of personal stuff going on. Think he's only young.
Yes, his Twitter bio says he's 19, which would have made him 18 during that whole incident. And by a few days ago, do you mean like relative to today? Sorry if that's obvious, but I find the timing weird.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 days ago. What about Ocelot has actually prompted you to research him beyond him being active in the Nier community? I assume he's done something.
He's got a very bad reputation. He's been particularly active in trying to research/replicate what we now know to be a mod/hoax. That drew attention to himself.
Oh, I didn't know it ended up being a hoax. That's a shame. Who was behind it?
Seems to be Japanese modders. They really did just revolutionize the Nier modding scene for no reason other than shits and giggles. They might also be kids, they had to speed up their game since one had his wisdom teeth removed.
A fair on them, I guess. So why is Ocelot trying to replicate a mod?
This is where I get conspiratorial. I'm not part of the modding Discord where most of the action was taking place, but it seems some serious discontent has been building up during this entire event. For the most part, I think that whole community got secretly pissed that they were being outsmarted by nobodies. But a lot of this is derived from unrelated tangents entirely. New drama that involved entirely different people. From what I can tell, Mo was just one of the analysts looking over the videos and eventually resorted to trying himself and didn't get far. Listen, I'm only interested in this guy as another interesting playing piece in an unusually tightly constructed puzzle. If you say you think he's not bad, that's fine. I'm just trying to get the whole picture, you know?
Well, he was a toxic motherfucker a year back, when I was involved with his activities. I can tell you that much. He faked being a Team Ico developer for months, just so people would be attracted to his server. When people at Stage 0 found out, he actively tried to bury us by just removing our permissions from several community hubs like the Fan Wiki, or the Beyond the Forbidden Lands Discord server. Even banning some of us eventually. But again, can't speak for him nowadays.
What exactly was the relationship between BTFL and Stage 0? It seems that what BTFL was doing would have required those two groups to be closely knit.
Stage 0 was only formed when one of us found out Ocelot was faking a developer, and we all created a separate server from BTFL to talk about how best to deal with, and it sort of spiraled into what it is today. Before that, we'd all just use BTFL's server to talk, so we're pretty tightly knit with that project and friends with a lot of the project leads.
Okay, so Ocelot was a fake developer. When did the actual source get involved? I saw someone say he stumbled upon that source by accident, and he used that info as some, I don't know, attention grabber, but maybe I misread.
Ocelot getting the information from the actual source happened a good few months after the fake developer incident, I think.
Jesus, that's a complicated series of events.
Yeah, haha, you could write a story out of it, STG.
I'm looking over the 4chan thread where he leaked everything, and he claims that his leaked images came from a binder that he said he didn't find himself, but someone in TS0 had. He also tried to suggest the OP of that thread and himself were two different people, but it seems like he gave up on that ruse halfway through and nobody questioned it.
Yeah, the leaks initially came from someone Ocelot privately sent the leaks to. Then when Ocelot saw some things had leaked, he just leaked everything else himself.
Alright, now I'm officially confused, haha. How much of what Ocelot said was false? Did you guys get most of the info from a binder that was given to a Team Ico field designer?
I don't really want to say too much about our involvement with the source, but he sent us the information and images in pieces over a while and Ocelot compiled it all. And Ocelot was a very manipulative liar back then, so assume anything about his side is either wrong or a distortion of what actually happened.
Got it. Someone finally sent me a link to the Modders Discord for NA. I wanted to get in for other reasons, but just going through his messages, he seemed to be in a mad dash to disprove the whole thing. Lots of swearing at other people, but nothing insane. I can't tell, but maybe one of the modders involved in the fake was previously known?
I'm not clear on much of the Nier situation at all, really. Never played the game, so I'm not sure if the modder was previously known.
Well, I think that's about all I had to ask. Thank you so much for answering my questions. Apologies if I came across as interrogative or anything.
No worries, mate. Glad to help.
So, if it's not obvious, Bunsington was lying to me the whole time, but like any good liar, he was mixing in elements of the truth alongside the bullshit, which made it hard to tell what was really happening. The part that stood out to me like a German in Dresden was when he admitted that someone from TS0 was the initial leaker. Again, that wasn't mentioned anywhere on the Reddit threads, and if it were true, it would make TS0 just as guilty in getting their source cut off as Psychopath. Right then, it became obvious how much I didn't know. What was Team Stage 0 anyway? Who was the original leaker? How much did Psychopath deserve his horrible reputation? I had to stop fucking around and get the whole picture. First off, BTFL was apparently formed in 2018, but it seems more likely that it only formed in 2020. TS0 was formally created on January 6, 2021, with an announcement on Reddit and the creation of their YouTube page. They had 8 members: Lord Unconfirmed, Mayflex, JK, Mr. Munsington, Leo, Wissy, Eighth, and Nomad Colossus. If you don't know, Nomad is one of, if not the, biggest Shadow of the Colossus and Team Ico YouTube channels around, and he's been covering the game since 2010 and finding all kinds of crazy shit. He's massively respected in the community, and something of an icon. Also relevant is Max Dorat, another sizable YouTuber who became very heavily involved in promoting BTFL.
I released a video on my channel titled Shadow of the Colossus, Stonehenge Mystery Solved. In that video, I investigated the religious history of European megalithic rock structures and how they might have influenced the mysterious Stonehenge rock in the game. More importantly, however, I briefly mentioned how this rock was supposed to be used in one of the Beta Colossi fights, against a dog-like colossus known as Sirius. Shortly after releasing that video, a gentleman by the name of Ocelot reached out to me via social media. On top of telling me how much he liked my video, he also let me know about something that was in the works. He took note of the fact that at the end of my Stonehenge video, that I expressed a subtle lament that we would never fight the Beta Colossi. When I acknowledged that lament, he responded by telling me something that I've wanted to hear my whole life. He said, "What if I told you that you could fight the Beta Colossi?"
On a side note as well, I should also point out that there's like, you know how like the terrain is kind of like just like triangle strips with textures popping on top of it?
Yeah.
We do have working texture blending in the new builds. So if I was to switch my screen over, give me a minute. But if we go over here, notice the difference in textures. It's actually all blending together now instead of being like the cartoonish style that this was previously.
Yeah, when it's not a complete bird eye view and you're viewing it as if Wander or any other human were viewing it, it looks really good.
Yeah.
So off the bat, could you please tell me and everybody at home how this project came to be?
Beyond the Forbidden Lands was like the started off as like me messing around with tools in Unity, trying to, for example, recreate the actual Forbidden Lands using Unity's terrain tools. At one point, I was able to eventually get my hands on actual models from the original game, thanks to the amazing Lizzie, who no one usually works with. He actually restored the I7 and I1 quadrants that previously couldn't actually be accessed in the original game. So basically, I was able to get some terrain models imported, and then I came across on the Shadow of the Colossus subreddit a person called Eighth, who was working on this part of the
You don't do scripts. You don't do a lot of things, do you? So here's the BTFL Discord server. For some godforsaken reason, it's still around. On January 6th, we can see Psychopath having a shit fit and banning people for no reason, which seems to be the real reason TS0 was created, and it was just a splinter group of people trying to escape Psychopath's influence, and they existed in an uneasy alliance with BTFL afterwards. This contradicts Bunsington's earlier statement that TS0 formed after Psychopath impersonated a Team Ico dev, but this is such an insignificant detail that it doesn't matter. Speaking of that incident, we can see that not only did it happen, but it's the stupidest story ever. This dude showed up to the server impersonating SOTC's leading environmental designer Masanori Kajita, using the name Fish and Chips, and pretending to speak Japanese, and just look at every member of BTFL fall for this shit. This is just pathetic, man. And you might recognize our friend Bunsington in these screen caps. Turns out that right now he's only 18 and would have been 16 while Psychopath was 17 and fooling all of BTFL. Talk about the blind leading the blind. So now you know that whenever somebody brings up this terrible incident where somebody fooled all of BTFL, just know it wasn't some complex scheme, it was literally just a bunch of teenagers exercising their underdeveloped brains. Since Bunsington was also a member of TS0, that also means that since their conception, they had a teenager, probably multiple, in possession of this super duper secret material that they were sworn to protect. Very classy. Psychopath's scheme gets revealed in March 2021 when TS0's source apparently tells them they aren't talking to the real Kajita. Psychopath does a dumbass Twitter meltdown routine and continues to be a little bitch until July 31st, 2021, when the server finally has enough of his shit and bans him from making his BTFL Classic server. So the story is that sometime between TS0's formation in January and March, only one person in TS0 got into contact with a dev who made an agreement to gradually give this one person SOTC material, which TS0 would slowly reveal by recreating this material themselves on their YouTube channel. But if only one person physically had these leaks, then that person had to have also been the guy that started the 4chan leak thread, which wasn't Psychopath, as admitted by TS0 and BTFL. And so this crucial guy also says that he got his info not from a dev, but a binder he stumbled across. So TS0 never had any contact with an actual dev. That entire story is fake. It was probably made up by Mayflex, who is a sibling of Bunsington and another member of TS0, to force Psychopath and to stop being an annoying cunt, which works. When the leaks happen in August, the dev story makes a perfect excuse to draw the heat off themselves. That's right, TS0 really was just a bunch of losers hoarding their screenshots for no reason. None of them are innocent. Maybe not even Nomad, my friends. Not even Nomad. So, most of what TS0 lied about was to save their own skin, particularly that Psychopath was the main leaker, not themselves, and that it got them cut off from their dev, who never existed. This is what Bunsington was lying to me about in those messages, primarily that Psychopath apologized, which never happened, go figure. What Bunsington realized was that I was investigating both sides of the leak, and so he tried to make Psychopath seem like someone who was just bad enough to leak all those materials and ruin TS0, but not such a bad guy that would warrant further investigation, which would reveal that TS0 were a bunch of circle-jerking fuck whores. It didn't work. And if you really want to entertain the idea that Psychopath did secretly apologize, it still makes everyone look bad. There's absolutely no mention of the apology in BTFL, meaning he hypothetically sent it to TS0 instead, which invalidates the hypothetical apology in the first place, since he fucked BTFL just as hard as TS0, and it also implicates TS0 since they withheld that hypothetical apology from BTFL. This little white lie was straight up one of the worst possible things Bunsington could have said to me, but by God, did he say it anyways. As for who that leaker was, well, according to my research and this screenshot, it seems to be Leo, which makes sense since he isn't a part of TS0's lineup anymore. Also, after these people accuse Leo of being the leaker, they turn around and butter him up when he comes back. What a bunch of fucking backstabbers. But don't think even for a second this absolves any of Psychopath's actions. He got his hands on the leaks by threatening to kill himself, and then joined in on the 4chan threads after the actual leaker. And he's such a fucking moron that he plastered his name everywhere, which made him the singular best scapegoat of all time, because he's such a dislikable loser that basically everyone bought TS0's story immediately. It's funny seeing 4chaners call him base, when all he did was make himself look like the guiltiest virgin on the planet. If he had just sat back, TS0 would have destroyed themselves for him. And because most of what TS0 lies about is purely to save their own skin, basically every other accusation that was thrown at Psychopath was confirmed by his own admission. Faking being a deaf, leaking material and running away to spite everyone he worked with, threatening to dox people, being a twisted fucking psychopath. And by God, have I skipped so much fucking petty drama you have no idea. Flame wars on shitty fandom wikis and banning people and then unbanning them. It got to a point where even Nomad Colossus calls him a dick. Fucking Nomad. And this is just the shit he himself confirmed. The amount of accusations thrown at this motherfucker are out of this world. Now you would be correct to assume that most of what these Discorders have to say about him are biased against him, but I'm going to prove their statements later, so please take my word and consider what I'm going to show you next just as objectively true as all that other shit. The primary thing everyone calls Psychopath out on is the fact that he just goes around modding communities, stealing credit for others' work, and then fucks off to new communities when he gets caught. He tried to put together another dev team to recreate Devil May Cry 2 after its source code leaked, but I guess he didn't get far on that one. He also stole the work of a modder in the Blade and Sorcery scene, which caused everyone in that community to turn against him and raid the BTFL server. There's talk of him stirring shit in the Arma community, but at that point I just stopped digging. And so that brings us back to today, back to Nier and the Hidden Church, to the modding community that tried and failed to disprove the hoax, and back to Meows and Stuff, aka Revolver Ocelot, aka Mo, aka Mr. Blue 630, aka The Virgin with Rage, aka The Twisted Psychopath. And he is, at the end of the day, nothing more than a deeply untalented individual who goes around modding community to steal others' work, taking credit for their talent, then moving on when he proves to be such an annoying asshole that nobody can tolerate him anymore. I mean, for fuck's sake, when it came to the Shadow of the Colossus leaks, he still had to take credit for other people's work. That's how pathetic he is. And on July 25th, like a parasite entering a host, he joins the Nier modding community. He immediately demonstrates that he never actually played Nier, getting clowned on in the process. He starts trying to replicate the mod in an attempt to disprove it, and he proceeds to spend the next 4 days tripping over his own feet trying to get basic geometry working, and shitting all over a community he had just barely joined. You can't make this shit up, man. On the 26th, he creates the debunking document and contributes exactly 2 things to it: jack and shit. Everything here was already written by other people, some of it as early as June. And yet, who does he put at the top of the credits? I'm shocked. I don't know what to say. This motherfucker is such a fucking parasite. But that isn't the worst part. Oh no. This is. On the 29th, barely 4 days after he joined the community, this fucker does a Kotaku interview. Look at that. Leading figure in the hunt? Is that what he told the fucking interviewer? And he absolutely didn't want to believe it wasn't a mod. He was trying to disprove it from day one. I'm speechless. I'm genuinely struggling to understand what could have happened in someone's life to make them such a goddamn parasite. Well, he is the psychopath after all. And people on the Discord noticed. This parasite hadn't even been there for an entire week, and he's already ruined his reputation with his constant shit-talking and know-it-all attitude. Let's take a look at what the people of this Discord think of our friend, the psychopath. And this is how they feel about him after only a few days. Could you imagine how everyone else feels about him? Random strangers, people he's wronged in the past? How about close acquaintances, his classmates? Even in real life, he has no friends. And here's the money shot, the kicker, the punchline. Sad Futago, the modding team behind the church, they hate him too. They used Sad Futago's account to post one last comment. This isn't about anyone else. Nobody else was saying this. I checked. I really did. He showed up for 6 days, and that's all it took for everyone, all the way up to Sad Futago and the team behind the hidden church, to hate him. So, it's time for the conclusion. How did the team behind Sad Futago get away with their shenanigans? Well, contrary to what you might have believed, it wasn't because they were particularly smart about it or anything. Nah, they had help. But not directly, you see. Sad Futago got lucky, like 1 in a billion lucky, that the two people at the forefront of the modding discourse are some of the worst specimens that I have ever seen. If it wasn't for Lance having a panic attack over losing the world's shittiest crown and throwing everyone off, or Mr. Psychopath convincing everyone to rally against his arguments purely because of how dislikable he is, then odds are Sad Futago would never have succeeded to the extent it has. Indeed, these two are the real reason Sad Futago became a phenomenon. They're the secret ingredient that allowed everything to play out like they did. But that's all in the past now. We need to focus on the future, and Psychopath is a direct threat to the future of the Nier community. If you just look at what I've shown, it's a concrete fact that he's a repeat offender who goes into modding communities and does his absolute damnedest to ruin them. He's like a fucking serial killer. He has an MO. And here he is, right in the center of a brand spanking new modding community that's about to explode in popularity. And within less than a week, he's already trying to steal the spotlight and pissing everyone off. This guy is a shark in the pool, a pedophile in the kindergarten. We need to get him the fuck out of there. I'm serious. We gotta get him out of the community. Do whatever it takes to get this guy gone. Get him out of there. Get him the hell out of there. Don't give him his jacket. Get him out of there. And so what's the moral of the story? Never trust a furry, my friends. That's the moral.
Part 3. Vlogger's Delight.